Well, here we are, folks. It's finally arraignment day. Former President Donald J. Trump has been successfully arraigned. He pled not guilty. I know you're all very surprised. We were all waiting with bated breath, watching the still frame on CNN because no cameras were allowed in the courtroom, waiting with bated breath until finally it was announced Trump pled not guilty. Considering the evidence against him is so very compelling, there was a question as to whether or not it was worth even fighting in court, whether it was worth trying to shake off these charges, because we all know how very guilty the Orange Man is. So, from what I hear, he is facing potentially 4 years in prison. Would be very funny if they try and put Trump in Rikers. I mean, could you imagine that? I don't know. Would they murder him, or would they elect him the prison king? I think it's kind of a 50-50 when it comes to Rikers. I mean, I think that in an alt timeline where Trump is convicted and sentenced, who knows? I mean, that could be this timeline. What am I saying? But in the timeline in which that happens, and Trump gets sent to Rikers Island for 4 years, I think that would be such a great arc in Trump the series. I can see it already. The Adventures of Donald J. Trump, part 75. Or no, I guess it'd be like part 78, right? He's 78 years old. The Donald Takes Rikers Island. I mean, think about the title's great. I can see the poster, Orange is the New Orange. I mean, writes itself. I mean, he would blend right in. The prison garb is the same color as him. I mean, he's basically camouflage. It's like he's walking around nude. But anyway, in all seriousness, he could spend 4 years in prison. Gee, I wonder what that could potentially overlap with. 4 years. I wonder when they sentence him, let's say he's convicted. I mean, depending on when he's sentenced, that might completely overlap with a potential presidential term of office. And wouldn't you know, 5 days before sentencing is announced, or is set, and wouldn't you know, we'd be right at the November 2024 election. Trump could be sentenced to 4 years in prison, elected president, and never again set foot in the White House. Can you imagine the CNN headlines? Trump, elected president, will never set foot in the White House. I tell you, this Rikers Island arc is going to be superb. Think about it. We have Mar-a-Lago already, a satellite White House. He's going to turn Rikers into a third White House. Alan Dershowitz has already brought up the idea Trump could rule, or govern, I'm sorry. We call it governing, because we live in a democracy. Trump could govern from prison. I can't imagine anything more chaotic, more entertaining, and frankly, more deserving of this very, very late stage declining republic. I know I was ripping Trump yesterday, saying it's a dumb idea to go and participate in this. But that doesn't mean that I'm not entertained by it, okay? There's a difference between what he should do, if he's taking these things seriously and he's trying to be a real leader, and what I find fun, okay? I'm not one of these people who actually takes Trump seriously. I think that, he has a lot of supporters who take him very seriously. But I'm not one of those people. Trump has proven time and time again that he's not a serious person. And you know what? That makes him fun. But I don't know how he's going to top himself after this one. I really, really want him to win if they are going to end up putting him in prison. Then in the next New York gubernatorial election, the big question will be, the debate will be over, should we let Trump out of prison and let him go back to the White House, or should we keep him locked up? a state gubernatorial election could decide the fate of the sitting U.S. president. No state in history has ever imprisoned the federal president. I mean, back in the 1860s, that would have been seen as an act of rebellion. Could you imagine if Maryland, arrested Abraham Lincoln and put him in prison? Because Lincoln actually deserved it, since he put most of Maryland's elected government in prison and replaced them with, his own hand-picked cronies. So Maryland actually would have been in the right to imprison Abraham Lincoln. But in the case of New York imprisoning Donald J. Trump, I mean, this will over Stormy Daniels, of all things. Nothing else that they've looked into him for: Russia collusion, election interference, all this stuff. None of that they've been able to make stick. If the one thing that they can finally get Trump on is Stormy Daniels, I wish that I could just, I'll chef's kiss every time I look at CNN, which isn't very often, so maybe I won't do it that often, but I will involuntarily chef's kiss every single time I look at CNN and I see it on any screen. Because that's exactly what they deserve. That's exactly what we all deserve. A clown country deserves a clown president, and we deserve the entire situation. Our national climate should be immersed in clownery. I guess, though, since Trump is heading back to Mar-a-Lago, I didn't specifically hear this, but I assume that means they released him on his own recognizance, which means he is not going to be locked up in jail waiting a pending trial. So I guess that's a good thing for him. I would have been funny if they went that far, although I guess I still would have felt bad for Trump, even though I said he shouldn't go back, because that you run the risk of that. But anyway, needless to say, we will all be tuned in at 8:15 sharp tonight in prime time for Trump's address, exclusively on Rumble. I don't think he will be streaming it anywhere else. Well, I guess probably his Truth Social, but I don't know anybody who uses that. I certainly don't. So we're going to have to tune into that. That's going to be entertaining. It's going to be fun. With that said, I will see you folks back here tomorrow, hopefully with some non-Trump trial related stuff. Hopefully this settles down for a bit so I can talk about other things. I don't like doing this, but this is like historical stuff. And part of the reason I have this channel is so I can look back in the future at any given date and say, hey, what did I have to say about what happened that day? And so on the day of the Trump arraignment, I think that's kind of an important date. If I might go back in a few years and say, hey, what did I have to say about the Trump arraignment? And then I go on that day, and instead I was, I don't know, reviewing a funny cat video, that would be a little disappointing. So, with that said, I will see you folks back here tomorrow.